Hello, welcome back to this YouTube channel. My name is JC. So today I'm going to share the last installment of the Rockefeller success stories, which is part 7. So let's get started. Live frugally, even when you don't have to. In looking back on the factors that most shaped the trajectory of his success, Rockefeller believed that one of the most important was his decision to track all of his spending and saving. Starting as a young man, John D. had kept a strict accounting of his finances in a small red pocket notebook he dubbed Ledger A. Even as an old man, he kept it in a safety deposit vault like a sacred relic, which to him it was, a device which had taught him the value of a dollar or a cent, and thus influenced the outcome of his whole life. During his lean days as an assistant bookkeeper in Cleveland, making sure his income outpaced his expenditures was a matter of necessity, and he lived as Spartanly as possible. As he remembered of the time, I wore a thin overcoat and thought how comfortable I should be when I could afford a long, thick ulster. I carried a lunch in my pocket until I was a rich man. I trained myself in a school of self-control and self-denial. Even after he accumulated massive wealth, and his personal account books became far denser and more complicated than when he was a boy, rather than outsourcing their auditing to a professional, he pored over the ledgers himself, correcting the tiniest of errors, and, just like in his business life, disputed bills that were inaccurate by a cent or two. And though he now could afford just about any conceivable entry in the expenditures column, Rockefeller continued to live frugally, relative to his vaunted station in life. Of course, he bought and built large houses, and they were always relatively modest compared to what he could have afforded, and what his fellow robber barons constructed. Directed as he was, he designed and decorated his homes not to impress others, but merely to please himself and his family, and chose a style that eschewed ostentation. This discretion was not only relative to his frugality, but also to his aforementioned reserve. He liked to live in a way that masked the true size of his fortune. Rockefeller kept up his thrifty habits throughout his life as well. He would save the paper and string from packets that arrived in the mail, wear out his suits until they had become almost threadbare, and go through the house at night turning off gas lamps that had been left on. When playing golf, he always used old balls around tricky traps, since they had a good chance of becoming lost. When he saw others using new balls, he'd exclaim in surprise, "They must be very rich." At the holidays, he and his wife exchanged practical gifts like pens or gloves, and then wrote each other effusive thank you notes, extolling how much they appreciated the present. The Rockefellers were eager to pass on their frugal ways to their 4 children, who they understandably worried would grow up to be spoiled adults. In an attempt to combat this and impress upon their children an appreciation for what they had, the Rockefellers tried to keep them from grasping the extent of their wealth. They never visited their father's refineries and offices, and Rockefeller ran his household like a mini merit-based economy. Following in his footsteps, each child was required to keep their own accounting books, and they could earn pocket money by doing things like repairing vases, killing flies, pulling weeds, chopping wood, and abstaining from candy. The children wore hand-me-down clothing and received only a modest number of gifts and toys. For example, when they all asked for bicycles, Rockefeller decided against getting a bike for each, and instead opted to buy only one they would need to learn to share. Amazingly enough, Chernow notes, the 4 children probably grew up with a level of creature comforts not that far above what Rockefeller had known as a boy. Rockefeller not only tried to impart the value of money to his children, but later to his grandchildren as well. When he visited them, he would give each a nickel, accompanied by a kiss and this admonishment. Do you know what would hurt grandfather a great deal? To know that any of you boys should become wasteful, extravagant, careless with his money. Be careful, boys, and then you'll always be able to help unfortunate people. That is your duty, and you must never forget it. Rockefeller's frugality for frugality's sake represented a commitment to a life principle, a stance, an attitude that he wished to maintain even when thrift no longer served a practical purpose. It served as a check to ego and a continual reorientation towards wealth, a reminder not to take it for granted, an acknowledgement of its potential transience, and reaffirmation of the ability to go without. In a way, Rockefeller's frugality wasn't about money at all, but rather a way to exercise the muscle that had generated his success in the first place, and continued to hold it all together: self-mastery. In continuing to be his own tyrant, he ensured the retention of his throne. Wow. So that's the end of this article. It's super impressive that Rockefeller has this extreme discipline for financials. And this is something that I personally really admire. And I think, in my past, like 20s or in my 30s, I squandered a lot of money, wasted a lot of money basically, buying, expensive clothing or expensive shoes, and, just to spend money unnecessarily a lot of times. And now I think that is lack of self-discipline. So I think the material stuff will not bring you happiness in the long term, but spiritual, the long-term happiness lies with the spiritual side of things. So really, material things don't really matter as long as you're happy spiritually, and you can get by materially. So you'll really be a happy man or woman. And this is what I have experienced. And also this is the same has been said from the Rockefeller stories, that to live a good life, it's not just having a lot of money and spend a lot of money. It's to have really good self-discipline and self-control. So that is the essence of success. And as long as you have success, then money doesn't really matter, because you are already successful. And even if you lose the money, you can still earn a lot of money if you have self-discipline, and you can still be successful again. So this is the crucial thing that I've learned through the Rockefeller stories, and I hope that you learn a lot as well. So that concludes the Rockefeller success stories series, and I'll talk about some other more motivational and more success guidance type of stories or things in the future videos. So I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye.